Hey everyone, this is the read aloud video for the OER textbook, pages 18 through 22, 2.4 and 2.5. 2.4 is Mercantilism and the Navigation Acts. The prevailing economic philosophy of the 17th and 18th centuries empires was mercantilism. In mercantilism, colonies existed to enrich the mother country. Colonies played an important role in the successful implementation of mercantilism. Colonies were viewed as a source of raw materials and also as a market for goods made by the mother country. Restrictions were placed on what the colonies could manufacture, whose ships they could use, and most importantly, with whom they could trade. Distance and the size of the British Empire, however, made it difficult for Britain to fully regulate the colonies' trade. Before 1763, the British followed a policy known as salutary neglect. Britain passed laws regulating colonial trade, but it knew that it could not easily enforce them. During the period of salutary neglect, Britain did not enforce many of its trade laws, and the colonies had greater autonomy. It cost 4 times as much to use the British Navy to collect taxes or duties as the value of the duties themselves. So, following the French and Indian War, the British government was in debt. Therefore, it attempted to enforce its trade laws as a way to help the British economy increase revenue. The Navigation Acts were examples of royal attempts to control colonial trade. The Navigation Acts banned the American colonies from trading with any nations beside Britain. The merchants in Britain wanted American colonists to buy British goods, not French, Spanish, or Dutch products. Smuggling became common in the colonies as colonists attempted to avoid Parliament's trade restrictions. Colonists, particularly in New England, thought nothing of ignoring what they saw as restrictive trade laws. Ships from the colonies often loaded their holds with illegal goods from the French, Dutch, and Spanish West Indies. British customs officials often earned a modest salary from the crown, and these officials often supplemented their income with bribe money from colonial shippers. Even when smugglers were caught, they were often freed by sympathetic American juries. The British estimated that over 700,000 pounds per year were brought into the American colonies illegally. As 1776 approached, the tradition of smuggling became vital to the revolutionary cause. Smuggling was in blatant disregard to British laws and helped establish a tradition of colonial defiance. American shippers became skilled at avoiding the British Navy, a practice they used extensively in the Revolutionary War. Soon, Britain began to try offenders in admiralty courts, which had no juries, and these colonists saw the use of admiralty courts in smuggling cases as an abuse of their rights. Vocabulary you can look at on your own. The John Peter Zenger trial and freedom of press. Newspapers and other sources of media allowed for the exchange of ideas and the voicing of dissent. When a corrupt government holds power, the press becomes a critical weapon. It organizes opposition and can help revolutionary ideas spread. The trial of John Peter Zenger, a New York printer, was an important step toward this freedom for American colonists. John Peter Zenger was a German immigrant who printed a publication called the New York Weekly Journal. This publication harshly pointed out the actions of the royal governor of New York, William S. Cosby. I like to think of him as Bill Cosby. It accused the government of conducting fraudulent elections and allowing the French enemy to explore New York Harbor. It accused Governor Cosby of an assortment of crimes. Although Zenger merely printed the articles, he was put in jail. The authors were anonymous, and Zenger would not name them. In 1733, Zenger was accused of libel, a legal term whose meaning has evolved over time. In Zenger's day, it was libel when you published information that opposed the government. Whether the information was true or false was irrelevant. Zenger never denied printing the pieces. The first jury was packed with individuals on Cosby's payroll. Throughout the process, Zenger's wife Anna kept the presses of the New York Weekly Journal rolling. Her reports resulted in the replacement of Cosby's jury with a true jury of Zenger's peers. When the trial began, Zenger's new attorney began his defense. A stir fluttered through the courtroom. The most famous lawyer in the colonies, Andrew Hamilton of Philadelphia, stepped up to defend Zenger. Hamilton admitted that Zenger printed the charges and demanded the prosecution to prove them false. In a stirring appeal to the jury, Hamilton pleaded for his new client's release. It is not the cause of one poor printer, he claimed, but the cause of liberty. The judge ordered that the jury to convict Zenger if they believed he printed the stories. The jury, however, returned after less than 10 minutes of deliberation with a verdict of not guilty. Cheers filled the courtroom, and the surprising outcome of the trial soon spread throughout the countryside. Zenger and Hamilton were hailed as heroes. John Peter Zenger became a symbol for freedom of the press in the American colonies. Freedom of the press protects the right to spread information, even if it's critical of the government. With the Zenger verdict, another building block of liberty was in place. Although true freedom of press was not known until the passage of the First Amendment, newspaper publishers felt freer to print their honest views. As the American Revolution approached, this freedom would become ever more vital.